What is going on, everybody? It's Bobby Fi back with my man Sheets. We are doing a Fanduel breakdown. Obviously, a sad day. We're fighting through it, and we're going to make a ton of money and celebrate Kobe Day the right way. So that's where we're at right now. Sheets, what are you doing over here? What are you thinking about this slate?
Hey, so first of all, I just want to let you know that we just did a DraftKings thing where we spent about 10 to 15 minutes talking about about Kobe and the impact and things like that. I'm really just not in the mood to do it again. You want to know the truth?
Yeah,
So you could go back and look at that if you want. I'm sure maybe Bobby might do something separate because Bobby has a very strong tie with him from being from LA and being in that generation and things like that. And I will say just on something you told me like 5 seconds ago. I mean, for those of you who don't really understand the impact of this that it has on some people, it really does, depending on where you're from and what your generation is and all that stuff. So people that are going to go on Twitter and say and trash people for getting behind Kobe, being upset about it. I mean, give me a break. You know what I mean? Just let everybody deal with this in their own way. But that's really all I have to say about this.
Yeah, I'm with you there, man. I'm ready to move on to the games because
all right, I'm really more interested right now in figuring out whether to fade Eric Gordon. So we'll get to that in a second. So again, we will talk. Actually, there is a little bit of narrative street to discuss because of the Kobe thing. Just because there are guys that get emotional about this, and there are players that might put out extra effort. And we are in the business of trying to give advice on how to make money. So we are going to talk about a little bit about that. And there also are possibilities that people might play that otherwise might not otherwise because of they want to make a statement or things like that. There are some people that might get ruled out because they want to just grieve or something like that. So we are going to talk about a little bit of that. But one bit of news that just did come out was that LaMarcus Aldridge was ruled out. So we are going to, those who watch the DraftKings things, yeah, we didn't, it was a perfect storm that the news came out literally between us doing these videos. So we didn't deal with the LaMarcus Aldridge thing there, but we will deal with it a little bit now. So overall, my overall slate view is similar to DraftKings in that what you do depends on how you attack the multitude of value out there, starting with the Houston side. But I do think there's other value you can go to where maybe some of them are not as necessary, but maybe some of them are. And as we go position by position, I'll keep that in mind. Do you have any overall slate views?
The more I think about things, I am just starting to wonder if one of Westbrook or Harden ends up playing.
Okay.
I'm just starting to think about it more. I don't really know where I stand. These are unprecedented situations. Like I'm spending my whole day trying to figure out how to get tickets trying to get tickets for the game tomorrow without spending $10,000 for the Lakers and Clippers. And we don't even know if there's going to be a game. That's the latest word around here is that they're talking about potentially canceling the game, which doesn't make any sense to me why they would cancel that one. That's a great opportunity for celebration. Anyway, but yeah, it's a weird thing to do. So we don't really, there's going to be weird things and weird narratives to pick up on. I do agree. I like this build that you have here. I know that there's some of it's chalky. I don't love all of it, but I do think that this is a good core. It's hard not to play Luka on FanDuel. It's hard not to play. I really like DeRozan today. And then the interesting part about the San Antonio situation is I think that with everyone going to Podol, which I like, but I think that Rudy Gay is the low-owned option that could end up getting you there. So I'm looking.
Yeah. So likewise, just so you guys know, I mean, again, when I put this together, these are just kind of plays, and I do this for the purpose of doing this video. So for example, when I put in Gordon and Culver, it's not because I like Culver the best per se, but it's to remind me to talk about Culver in a way and to see if it's a pivot. There might be other small forwards I like more than both these guys, but these are just kind of like reminders to myself of guys. Like if I didn't put DeRozan in, I might not even remember to bring him up. And likewise, if I didn't put Dedmon in, I might spend all my time talking about Pirtle. You know what I mean? So we'll see. And Dedmon actually might be just kind of a tremendous pivot now that you think about it. But we'll talk about Gay. We'll talk about the other guys. We could start at point guard where the three chalkiest guys as of now are going to be not the value. They're going to be Luka and De'Aaron Fox and Derrick Rose. And all three of those look to be kind of good plays. For me, I think if you're going to deal with the Houston value, you'd like to pick one that's not going to be the chalkiest of the chalk from his position at least. And I'm going to go with Austin Rivers as kind of my first priority of that value, just because of the ownership break you might get. Maybe you won't get a break on it, but he's the first guy I put in. So I put in Luka and Rivers
You
as
guys are going
my.
to get the real me. I'm sorry, I've got to answer the door because these people are doing a house check. So please keep going, Sheets.
Oh, no problem. So I'm thinking that Rivers
I'm
will
in
be
the
the
middle of
first
trying
guy
to-
I put in. Now he might end up being really chalky too, but based on
No,
these original ownership projections I have in, I have Rivers as being the first guy I'm putting in. Luka is going to be really, really popular. And the problem with fading him, I don't say the problem with fading him, it's just so easy to get him because of all the value that's out there that I just think Luka's just going to be, it's going to be tough to not be able to get him, which means everybody's going to get him. Aside from this main core, which is, again, the Luka, Fox, and Rose, all I think are good plays, and Rivers, who I think is a tremendously great value, the next guy I would throw in as kind of a pivot off of some of this value, this is really gross, but I know Bobby might want to get behind this, maybe, at point guard is Darius Garland, maybe?
My number one play at point guard.
All right, how about that? So Darius Garland, if you didn't want to go the really cheap value with Rivers and you didn't want to spend up for all those guys, you want to go really low road, Garland would be the next guy on my list. So it took a long time for me to get Bobby on board with that one. So that's really all I got for point guard. What do you like?
So I really like Garland. I actually like Sexton over here.
All right.
I like Rivers fine, but and I think Luka's really hard not to play. So I think you're playing him with one of these guys. I get the Fox thing, but I don't think you need to play him here. I think that you can go for a different build and play one of these other guys that I like. And for me, that's mostly going to be, I think it's going to be Garland quite a bit, and I think it's going to be a little bit of Austin Rivers, maybe one with Sexton, and the other guy who like Markelle Fultz is really cheap. And I think he's a solid play because he'll get lower ownership than he should. So they're all good options, but I'm ranking Garland a little bit ahead. Although I do like Fultz. I don't know. I might change my mind on the Fultz thing. Fultz is close to Garland actually. Now that I look at it.
All right.
But Garland is the way to get different though. Like no one's going to play. Well, I don't know. We'll see. I can't imagine.
No way.
I don't see it
playing him. Speaking of nobody playing him, so I'm looking at the shooting guard position, and it's okay. So
baffling, right?
What's that?
Baffling. The projected ownerships.
Well, let me just see. Maybe I'm hoping it updated with what's his name being out, with LaMarcus Aldridge being out. So I guess DeRozan's picking up some ownership. I suppose he's like 20% now. The top owned guys, Butler, Levine, Mitchell, I guess all these guys.
This just in, we have Capella as doubtful, by the way.
Oh, Christ.
So so with no Capella, that changes everything.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we'll deal with that. So he's doubtful now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what that does a couple of things. We can talk about this for a second. First of all, it opens up maybe some other guys, but the other thing it does is almost assure to me that this game is gone as far as competitiveness. So I mean, it's possible, and you can pray for it. I know we talked about that, but he was like the last hope I thought of that game being remotely competitive. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to figure that out unless you have a guy who's kind of blowout proof, I think. So I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that. But aside from that, I mean, Donovan Mitchell looks to be a good play. Butler looks to be a good play. And as far as some values go, I talked about Bogdan Bogdanovic a little bit on DraftKings. I think he looks pretty good on FanDuel also. And the guys that we really have to talk about, kind of the upper range guys you could afford, and that's going to be DeRozan and Levine.
James Harden now questionable. What did I start off the show by saying?
Who is?
I nailed that one.
Who?
James Harden just got upgraded to questionable.
Yeah, he's playing.
I said one of these guys are going to end up playing. That's exactly what's going to happen.
I mean, he's playing. He's just playing, right?
He's playing, and he's a virtual lock.
He's playing, and now it's you could probably play Luka and Harden together, and if you wanted to,
yeah.
And get value elsewhere, so we can focus on that a little bit. But I am now operating the assumption, at least for now, that Harden's going to play. We're definitely going to have to do a live thing later where we have to update on all this stuff. But this is the stuff that you have to look for. This is for those of you that have been trolling Bobby and trolling people saying, oh, what's the big deal about Kobe, whatever. This day, it's just not like any other thing. You know what I mean? Like, this is when people literally come out of the freaking locker room that weren't going to play and say, there's just no way I'm just going to sit there, you know, and just not play. You know, this is what everybody would have wanted me to do, and I'm going to find my way to play. Not to mention the fact they already ruled Westbrook out, although maybe he's back in play. Who the hell knows, right? But with Capella doubtful, I think that upgrading Harden to questionable, to me, is a pretty clear indication he's going to play. To the point where if it's 7 o'clock, I think I'm going to play him if there's no news.
Oh, I would feel absolutely comfortable playing him.
Okay.
And we'll hear something by then too. I'm sure we'll hear.
Yeah, and again, just because there's a lot of stuff going on, the other shooting guards. So I mentioned DeRozan, I mentioned Levine. Both these guys are playable, and both these guys are, you know, you can get them with the other value there is out there. And again, this is just, again, I don't know if you need to go down to this, but watch Miami news. You never know what happens there. If everything falls right, Tyler Hero could be a freaking lock again at 4,300. So it's really going to depend on any of these late news add-ons or scratches. But I would watch for Hero as possible if enough guys get ruled out.
Yeah, if for any reason Harden's out, the only guy I'd mention is Ben McLemore at 3,600 if you were going to spend down at the position. I think there's a lot of good plays at the position, but I think that you really just need to narrow it, and I think it's just all the top guys. I think you spend up here. I'm going to play DeRozan and Harden mostly, with some Harden Levine, with some Harden Butler. That's basically all I'm looking at doing, even though I can make a case for Donovan Mitchell and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I like, and Dennis Schroeder, who's too cheap over here, and Evan Fournier, who's way too cheap over here. Bogdan Bogdanovic, way too cheap over here. But I just think the way that my builds are going to lead me is going to take me to spending up here.
Well, you know, I know we want to play or consider playing DeRozan, but, you know, if you're going to play Harden, I was going to say if you're going to play Harden, you could certainly play Mitchell as a pretty safe, not to say safe, but a pretty strong run back. But now we're going to be talking about two very chalky players, right? If Harden is ruled in and you could, you know, pairing him with Mitchell, you're not exactly doing.
I don't know that Mitchell's going to be like crazy chalky.
I guess not.
I mean, you got Levine there. You got Butler and DeRozan. Butler, especially if their guys are out in Miami. I think there's enough options here to where I don't think Mitchell's going to have too much ownership.
Okay. What was the news on Harden?
It's his thigh. It's a bruised thigh.
Okay. No, they didn't say anything like, oh, he's been upgraded because of something or other. No.
It just said Harden is now listed as question. They changed his injury designation, which is upgraded to questionable.
Okay.
That's usually a pretty strong indicator, especially right if you do it minutes after announcing another guy's doubtful.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, it's definitely a spend-up position for me, especially if you look at there's no one to spend up for at small forward. The power forward spend-ups aren't particularly exciting. And then we have value at center. So it's like an easy position to want to spend up at for me.
So we have to really think about these both ways, right? So you go to small forward, and where we were going to have a fist fight over whether Eric Gordon was a lock or not, now it might not be as much of a fist fight, although maybe it is. You know, maybe Gordon's still like a really, really strong player at 4,400.
He is. The thing is that I don't mind Culver. I don't mind Chetty Osman in the same price range, but I think that Gordon would still be my preferred guy in that particular range, unless we heard like Okogie was starting over Culver or something like that. I might lean a little bit towards Okogie more, but I don't think so. I think that mostly this is pretty much how it's gonna be at small forward. It's for me, it's Rudy Gay is number one.
Okay.
I love the speculation on what his potential upside could be in this spot. Like that he could literally take a lot of Aldridge's role. I know he's, you know, smaller, but Aldridge has been playing center, but like he can play the four easily. I just really like the way he fits in this, and I think he's got a lot of upside. And I really like Eric Gordon, but I also have I think that Culver's worth speculating on. I'm sort of interested in all of those guys, and I think even Hardaway and Ingles is the better play than Hardaway. And like Gallinari is really cheap over here. So there's a lot of ways you can go. I don't mind any of those. I just find myself more paying down over here. Gallinari and Ingles. If you want to go that route, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I just think I'm mostly going to pay down.
I mean, if in fact Harden's playing, this Houston Utah game just becomes quite the stack. It really does.
Yeah, I think that Ingles is the best play from, just to speak to that, I think Ingles is the best play from the Jazz in general. Like, they do I've never seen a team that, like, I mean, not never, but they're as bad against the wings as any team I've ever seen, like, ever. They are so bad. They get torched every game by the wings. So actually Bogdanovich too is in play, but I think I would lean Ingles being the best play.
Yeah, I think Bojan's going to get a decent amount of ownership.
I think Ingles might too, though. I always feel like Ingles is a little bit underrated with his ownership.
I think you're right.
And he's just like safe too. Like you're safe with upside. Perfect matchup for him.
Yeah, but I think your play. I think Rudy Gay could be a way to go because again you'll see everybody that looks with projections right you'll see what's his name Portal just totally pop on like all the projection models, whether it be DraftKings or Fanduel or whatever, and people might I don't want to say sleep on, but forget what you were telling me before the show that that Rudy Gay in this particular situation, this is where he might take a decent amount of LaMarcus Aldridge's exact role,
mm-hmm.
and not only that, we'll get to center later, but Chicago's pretty small nowadays, and Rudy Gay can get away with playing some 5 there, maybe. You know what I mean? So he could it could be a good spot for him. He's been eased back from the injury, and I, as you said, made a mistake playing him the other day at 3,500. He really didn't get that many minutes, but maybe this could be a good spot for him.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so then you get to power forward, and like you were just alluding to before, the on the one hand you could spend up, yet on the other hand the spend up options are just they're fine. I mean there's okay, so you want to spend up, you could spend up on Bam if you want, and he's fine. You could spend up on Kevin Love if you want, and he's fine. But neither of them are that great. But then again, like the rest of them aren't that great either. So as far as like cheaper guys go, I guess Thaddeus Young would be my next guy. But I probably, what I could do? You could play Thaddeus Young in like a Rudy Gay stack, something like that. Thaddeus Young, Rudy Gay, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, let's go. You know what I mean? That's something you could try. Then again, we're having a PJ Tucker discussion, right? Bielitsa going back to Minnesota, he's a good play. You had mentioned maybe Robert Covington, I think, or I don't know if you had mentioned him, but you didn't mention him. But Robert Covington,
but I don't think he's a bad play over here.
Yeah, coming from that might not be so bad. So power forward could be, I guess, kind of like the crappiest position on the board. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those guys are like everybody's fine, and I think that Bam is like it's not a good matchup particularly, but I think he's a fine. I think that Kevin Love is fine. The guy who I lean towards the most is Bielitsa. Well, I don't know still where I stand with this, but I really feel like that big game is coming, and I think this is the spot. They played the blowout game the other night, so he didn't even get he might have played like 38 minutes in that game instead of 31. I think you might get a ceiling type of performance here from Bielitsa. Great matchup. Going back to Minnesota, going to have a little bit of ownership, but not a crazy amount. I mean, you can always do the Aaron Gordon thing at 5.7 and get your 30 fantasy points. And one of these days, sure, maybe he will break out. It's just been talking like that for the whole season so far. I still think PJ Tucker's in play. Even with Harden, I don't think that should affect him all that much, actually, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit, but he's at 4,100. And the guy who I'm starting to lean towards, so you can play the Trey Lyles speculation. I think Isaiah Hartenstein, we might have to do that.
Yeah.
Do you feel me on that one?
I completely do. And that's what I was going to say. When I was looking earlier, I was looking at, some of the sites' projected minutes. They had him for like 6 minutes or something like that. And that was before, Capella was downgraded to doubtful. And he was pretty good the few times that I was watching him. You know what I mean? He can do some things. And look, it's on the one hand, it's certainly not an easy matchup. But on the other hand, they're going to need somebody big to deal with Gobert. So maybe he'll get minutes because of it. So I'm on board with that.
I mean, yeah, I really also Harden. It's weird to say this because it's not like this guy's a great basketball player. I don't want to get this wrong, but he can put up a massive number here. He's done it before. He had the 57-point game against Minnesota earlier this year when they needed him to play against Cat. He had the 39 game against New Orleans, and basically when he's had played like 18 or more minutes, he's put up no lower than 27 fantasy points and as high as 57. That's a guy who I think like, oh no, sorry, he had one game with 23. I think we almost like, if he's starting, we might just have to lock him in anyway, because who are they going to match up with the Gobert? Like
they're gonna have to play Tucker 48 minutes.
No, but they can't play Tucker at the 5 against Gobert. You can play against the 5 against some teams, but not against Gobert.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
I think Hartenstein is like becoming a virtual near lock for me. Like, I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. I just can't see who's going to match up. Like, there's not even another guy with any size on their team. Like, I guess they could put Cephalosha on him. Like, they could put Harden on him. Harden's always been a good post defender.
I'm just very curious where that take leads. You know what I mean? I'm very curious whether, and it's an interesting psychological thing, because I'm wondering what happens if just nobody else talks about it. You know what I mean?
No, he's going to be. I think the projections are going to like leapfrog.
They have to, right? I mean,
they haven't updated for basically Capella being sort of out-ish, or Harden. And we got Harden back in now. He's in at least.
You have Harden projected as in now? Okay.
He's in the player pool now, which is nice.
Okay.
I
agree. I think that I really like this play, and I love it on FanDuel, and I love it at 7 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I will say this, that if this were a 7 o'clock game, and if in fact they announced Hartenstein starting at 6:30, and anybody game logged even watched for 2 seconds, he'd be just, considering how not weak, but how fishy the power forward position might be.
Yeah.
I mean, he would be just so chalky that I think that if you get on top of him at like 6:30 and just kind of hope, and like even if he doesn't start, I mean, you still can get there.
Yeah. I mean, we've got him now projected at 24 minutes. Like,
do you? Okay.
I don't see any way to avoid this play. Like, I mean, I guess the pivots would be interesting if he does get to be too chalky. Would be like PJ Tucker. Man, I am loving me some Hartenstein tonight.
1 second. So is he now starting to project already in the projection models? Or not even?
I see him as the starter, but I just see the minutes projection. I could take a look in a second.
Let's just see something real quick.
Updating a couple things real quick. Because, we've got no Capella in, but... Oh, Tyson Chandler's playing.
I was going to ask you what happened to him.
But I still like the play. Maybe this is...
No, they updated him. He's going to rate to be pretty good. He'll let them getting some ownership. But,
it's not going to be crazy anymore.
No.
I mean, I've got him in at 75% projected on DraftKings right now. Like, how much of them I have.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'm going to end up being that. I don't know.
So what do? You just actually, like, in the percentage, you just manually just type in 75, or you don't do one of those crunches where it just gives you 75, right?
Right now I'm asking for 75%.
Okay.
That's where I'm at, but I'm certainly open to other things. Oh man, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. We'll see.
All right, moving on. This is gonna be a fun one, man. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see if in fact Harden plays, how well he does.
Yeah, it's
because he's certainly gonna be pumping it up there.
Yeah, and there should be a huge rebounding game for Gobert. Like, I don't think you can. I guess he's too expensive over here, but it's kind of tempting to just completely flip everything and play Gobert and Harden.
Well, so here's the deal. So in center, right? This is the way I'm looking at it. So on center, there's, like I said, there are two ways that people are going to look to go. One is to go cheap, which to me means either Pirtle or Dedmon. And I guess Pirtle will be more popular. To me, they're kind of the same, if you want to know the truth. So I have no problem going with Dedmon if Pirtle is huge chalk. I'll probably play some Pirtle, but I'll definitely play Dedmon more. And the other way that people are going to suggest you could go Would you go all the way up to Drummond or Towns, which is certainly one thing you could do. You know what I mean? I think they both look like very good plays. And if you want to spend up, you could do that. Where no one is going to go, like you were just kind of alluding to, is you do something kind of weird and go with either like Vooch or Gobert, you know? So those could be the really low-owned guys that, again, I don't know if they have the ceiling to do it, but and now that I'm thinking of, maybe Gobert is the better one than Vooch as far as that goes. But that is definitely to be the low-owned way to play. And certainly if you're going to put Harden on one side, you want to throw Gobert in there, that'll be fun. And just to be on brand, I don't have to talk about every center, but again, if you want a guy, if having a 4% owned Vooch or Gobert isn't good enough for you, if you want to go 1% Tristan Thompson, you can try that also.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually like the Tristan Thompson idea. I'm right now fiddling with my lineups because I like the Hartenstein value play.
Yeah.
I'm sort of looking to pay up at center a little bit now.
Yeah.
Instead of playing Podol. Or I don't mind the Dedmon call. I actually think the Dedmon might be a really, really good play. And I kind of like the Thompson price. I think it's tempting. And Steven Adams is just crazy cheap at these minutes. I think there's a reason why. He's definitely fading out. And then we've got Cat and Drummond just being not that crazy owned, or even Gobert not being. I think that's what I'm going to do and differentiate my lineup that way. And
what's pay all the way up, or all the way up, or go to like a Gobert?
Go to all the way up or Gobert. Like, I mean, Gobert is going to be the lowest owned. So,
yeah.
And in a deceptively great matchup against the team that's best at centers because Capella's there. Without Capella, and you get a few minutes of Tyson Chandler and then Hartenstein, that's all you got.
I'll tell you, as far as this slate goes, I would love to try to be available later, right? After everybody gets ruled in and do whatever. I'd love to try to be available for a couple of like late wrap-up things before lock. If we can. If we can't, we can't.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah, so we'll see about that because, again, this, like I said, if Harden doesn't play, then all that Houston value becomes just, the seminal point of the slate, where if Harden does play, then just everything is different. So we at least gave you some ideas about where to go, but a lot of it is really just going to depend on how news falls between now and 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and it's going to be like, one thing is some of these other guys with Harden playing, it's not like they're unplayable, like Tucker, like Rivers, like even McLemore on Fanduel. Like, you can still play these guys. It's just they're not quite the same plays, but like they're still good value. They're still reasonable value if you want to go that route.
I think Harden's going to – if Harden plays, I mean, I think he's going to shoot the ball.
I don't know how not to play him.
What's that?
I don't know how not to play him.
Yeah.
Utah, for being a good defensive team, for some reason gives up the biggest fantasy performances every year to everybody. I mean, Giannis has like 290 games against them. Harden had like 100 against them once. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Westbrook puts up like 80 against them.
If you knew that James Harden would be 60% owned and Luka Doncic would be 50% owned, would you play both of them, one of them, or neither of them?
Both of them.
Okay.
I just am having a hard time avoiding it on FanDuel personally. I get it, but because I can differentiate. We already know how I'm differentiating my build. I'm spending down in other spots instead of the center spot, and then trying to pay up for a guy who's going to be unowned like Gobert or Towns or Drummond.
This lineup right here, I'm going to think about this. This one has both of them and is totally fine. I mean, like it's like
you got Garland. I mean, you don't need to worry about differentiating. You got Garland in there.
Yeah, but not even that. But it's usually when you play the big spend ups, you have to worry about like having shit players in the other spots. You know what I mean? Like
no.
You even have DeRozan. You know what I mean? And even Kevin Love. I don't even like that much, but he's a 7,300 guy. It's not like I'm paying down for crap to get these guys.
Yeah, I agree. But I just want to reemphasize though that some of these guys from Houston still become solid plays even without Harden. Like Daniel House on DraftKings maybe a little better play, but like he's not a bad play. Eric Gordon at 4,400 on FanDuel is not a bad play.
Isaiah Hartenstein, if you play him, you have to find other places to spend money, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be Gobert, right? It's going to be Hartenstein and Gobert. That's the story.
Hartenstein, Gobert for me, yeah. Boy, I really like this Hartenstein play, though. I'm glad now that what's his name's in.
You're going to play the 3,100. I don't care how you do it. Oh, is that DraftKings or FanDuel? I forget.
The 3,100 is the DraftKings.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. All right, good. This has been hopefully helpful.
Yeah, I think we got somewhere. I actually feel good about the end result here.
Oh, and by the way, just I did mention earlier that again, I don't want to say too soon, whatever it is. I did mention earlier to try to find guys that were number 24 that were playing today. Ken Birch, I think, is 24. I'm not sure. And I think yesterday Dylan Brooks smashed that's number 24. I think. But I think today it's possible, and this would be a nice thing. I think that like everybody's number 24.
What about, yeah, or we can just go back to the playing Kobe.
Oh. All right.
I mean,
sounds
come
good.
on. Look, you know what? I will definitely.
Wait,
I'm going to make a promise to you right now.
Yeah.
I will have at least one 222 lineup with Kobe White in it.
Well, let me ask you something. Now, you didn't stress this enough on Fanduel, by the way, because for those of you who just play Fanduel, we did talk for a full 5 minutes about this on DraftKings. Now, DeMar DeRozan became kind of a worse GPP play because Lamar Aldridge is ruled out, but a much better, just kind of regular play. Still a good GPP play, but obviously would have been greater at 3% ownership as opposed to the 15 he's going to be now. But as I mentioned, I mean, I just kind of suggested, and Bobby's like all over this on DraftKings. I mean, if you looked at the interviews yesterday, he was one of the more emotional of them all about Kobe, and I could just see him just going to Chicago and just, especially with Marcus Aldridge out, just freaking just going crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you completely.
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Well, hey guys, thanks for staying with us. We're gonna get out of here. Let's celebrate Kobe and do it the right way, and get us a win today. Again, rest in peace to the legend. And for Sheets, I'm Bobby Fye saying good luck, y'all. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.